Welcome back to the channel. This is the Action Figure Grader, and today we're going to take a look at recent sales for vintage Star Wars action figures, loose graded by UKG, AFA, and CAS. We've got some common stuff. We've got some Spanish figures. We've got a Lily Letty, really nice removable hood Jawa. Very nice assortment of figures across the entire price spectrum. And we're going to start off with some common stuff and get into the more crazy UKG graded items. First was a no COO AT-AT Commander with the very flesh face color to him. And this is not the Spanish PvP, which is a pale face. Usually, I think all Spanish figures are pale face. There might be a pink face Spanish PvP with the Scar COO. That was a question that I had asked by subscribers. What do you mean by Scar? Well, you got the no COO, which is what this one is, which appeared in Tri-Logos or Palatoy card backs. And it's a very smoothed out COO that you can see right there on the right-hand side. You can see where it says Made in Hong Kong has been removed, and it's kind of like a smoother finish to it. So this is it's where they took the molds and they smoothed it out for Palatoys and Palatoy Tri-Logos, and it just has the LFL 1980. A Scar COO were the Spanish figures, the Spanish PvP figures, where they took the Hong Kong molds and they very crudely scratched it out. So on the backs of the legs, you'll see like a kind of like a divot, and it almost looks like a little pieces carved out. That's what I mean by Scar COO. So that's what the Spanish PvPs are known for. But this one is just the standard no COO, and it sold for cheap, 67 pounds, which is $85. Here was another no COO AT-AT driver. This one sold for 70 pounds, which is $89 US. And again, you can see how smooth the back of the leg is with just the LFL 1980 on there. Here's an interesting one. Admittedly, it didn't go for much money, but this is Admiral Akbar, and this one had the 1982 date stamp on there, which is a little bit less common. And I know of the Lando Calrissian Skiff Guard also came with a 1982 date stamp. This would be like an early release version of Admiral Akbar. You can see 1982 on the back of the left leg there. But most of them are 1983, right? But the early ones had a 1982 date stamp, and that's what this one has. So it was probably being manufactured right as 1982 was ending into 1983 for the Return of the Jedi line of figures. So some of them still had that 1982 before they switched over the mold to a 1983. Again, that one sold for 64 pounds, but I thought that was kind of a cool variation that you don't see. I know that Barada is another one that has two different date stamps. Lando Calrissian Skiff Guard, and I'm sure there are others. Those are just the three off the top of my head that I remember. I think Barada is between 1984 and 1985, whereas Akbar and Lando Skiff have 82 and 83. In the comments, while you're leaving me a like, ideally, please leave a comment if you know of any others that have different date stamps like that. I mean, another one would be like R5D4, because some of them use the R2D2 bodies. So some of them do say 1977 versus the standard, which is 1978. But those are just some examples where some of the date stamps can be different. Here was a Skinny Legs Biker Scout. That's kind of a different figure, but you can see how skinny the legs are there. This one sold for 105 pounds, which is $134. But you can see there it says it's labeled Skinny Legs Hong Kong. And I know that there's also a no COO version of the Skinny Legs, which was made by the French Meccano factory, but this one was labeled Hong Kong Skinny Legs. Next up is another one you don't see loose graded very often, and that's the Probot. And this one was UKG 90%. You can see there Probot. So this is the one that appeared in the Probot and Turret playset. And this Probot was loose graded, and it sold for big money, 395 pounds, which is $505 US. Just an item that is very tough to find in high grade, since it did appear in a baggie, unassembled, as part of that Turret at Probot playset. But that one got the UKG 90% gold. Another good deal on a 90% gold was this Imperial Gunner. And this last 17 figure was listed for 375 pounds. Best offer was accepted. I forgot to look up the sales price on that one, but $480 US was the list price. So it sold for below that, which I think is a pretty good deal given that it's a gold level UKG 90%. Very tough to get that one in a gold level because of the emblems on the shoulders, as well as the silver belt buckle, which often does have rub on it. So that was a really nice figure. Some Spanish figures from UKG. This is a very tough to find early Spanish Pac for Princess Leia. All of the Spanish Pacs, to my knowledge, have a made in Hong Kong date stamp because, again, they use Hong Kong parts that they imported from Hong Kong to the Spanish Pac factory and then assembled and painted them in Spain. The Spanish Pac is known for very pale hands, and you can see some sloppy paint applications by her head there, where the flesh color is not exactly in line with the hair buns. So it's just one of those things that Spanish figures are known for. You got a UKG 80%, which I would say is appropriately graded, but really she's known for those very pale hands versus the skin color of her face there. That one was listed for 575 pounds, which is 736 US dollars, and that's right in line with pretty much every other Spanish Pac Princess Leia that I've seen come up for sale. It doesn't happen very often because there's so few of them out there that I've seen graded. But whether they're AFA or UKG graded, they always tend to go for between, let's say, $700 and $900. That seems to be the going rate for one of those. Another one that I was tempted by is the Pac Greyhead Yoda UKG 80%. Figure was 85, paint 75, cape 90, and it got the 75 because of the rub to the paint on the hands and the feet. So some obvious chipping there, but it did get the overall 80. And that one is very, it's known for that kind of gray head. So you can see how gray that head is versus the hands and the feet, the rest of the body really. 349 pounds, which is $446. I thought that was a very fair price for what it is. It's just a cool head variation color. Early Spanish figure. So there you go there. Next up is a uncirculated 85 AFA Taiwan Princess Leia Bush. Very tough to get this one in an 85 grade because the torso is always known to discolor, and this one is no exception. It's an older grade, so it's very possible that this one has discolored since grading, but that one did sell for $231 in an auction. I would argue that if you sent it back in to AFA, it probably would not get an uncirculated 85, but maybe it does. I don't know. I don't know how loosely they will grade Taiwan Bushes because they pretty much all discolor over time, and that's why it's very hard to find one in an 85 grade. But I would say that this one, personally, I would call this one more like an 80, just given the torso discoloration. Next up, I've got some other common figures. This was an 85 grade Hong Kong Boba Fett. That one sold in an auction for $227.59, which is right in line with market. It seems like standard Hong Kong Boba Fett's in an AFA 85 new case style go for about $225. Next up was a Han Solo trench coat, plain lapel, which is the more common in my opinion. AFA 85 plus though, and that one sold for $161.50, which I thought was a great deal for an archival 85 plus. Next up was an 85 plus Luke Jedi Knight, no COO green lightsaber. Again, archival case. That one sold for $341. As you'd expect, pretty much any Luke Jedi that's 85 plus or 90 goes for $350 to $450. So I thought that was a pretty fair deal there. Next up was an 85 grade pink face, pale hands Leia in her combat poncho. Good deal on that one, $144. I've seen them sell for $140 loose, complete, ungraded. So to get one AFA 85 for that price, I thought that was a good deal there. Another common one is the Hong Kong Hoth Rebel Soldier. Again, not particularly hard to find, very common, but new case style. That one sold for $152.50. And then here was a Hong Kong tan pants Han Hoth outfit. And that one is maybe a little more hard to find for the tan pants. You can see there, tan pants. And that's one I wouldn't mind picking up. The reason I stayed away from it is because I felt like it was a little bit overgraded. If you look at that glove there, as well as the belt buckle, it had a lot of paint rub. So I'm really surprised it got the 85. It sold for $161.40. And I paid $170, $180 for an AFA 85 no COO brown pants. I think it's dark tan pants is how it's really labeled by AFA. But this is the Hong Kong. And if it had been a little bit cleaner, I probably would have gone for it. But To me, it was a little overgraded, just given the paint wear to that glove there, as well as on the belt buckle. Lots of obvious paint rub, so I thought it was maybe a little bit overgraded. Next up is an AFA 85 Hong Kong Luke Hoth. Very tough to get this one in an 85 grade, and it had a couple of little scratches there on the crotch area, but overall, pretty clean figure. Some other paint rub by the goggles, but I think that's probably about an 85 in my opinion. Admittedly, a lower end 85. 236.50. We documented last year an AFA 85 with an archival case for Luke Skywalker and his Hoth battle gear that sold for crazy money. It was like $450 or more. So again, this one is on the lower end of an 85 grade, non-archival case, but $236.50 is a lot more palatable on the budget relative to that one that sold earlier. I think it might have been last fall. Here was a dark brown paint Hong Kong Tusken Raider. A little bit tougher to find that one. That one sold for $221.50. Again, not terribly hard to find. It's certainly not like a Spanish Pac figure, but that one does tend to command a little bit of a price premium versus just a standard Hong Kong with the normal brown paint. Next up, we've got some last 17 figures as well as some oddities to finish things off. We had an AFA 85 EV99 old case style. You can see how they used to encase the EV99 with these big blocks that went all the way around the figure. Not nearly as pretty to look at, aesthetically pleasing as the newer case styles with the dowels around the neck. But that one still sold for $350 in an auction on one bid. And then here was a CAS 80 grade yak face that sold for $750. I would argue that this is an overpay. No offense if you happen to be the one that bought it. I think you can find one in an 80 grade ungraded for, I'd say, $400 to $450 pretty easily if you're patient and are willing to look outside of eBay. Check out Facebook. You can find one in about an 80 grade pretty easily for about $400 to $450. And then grade it yourself, and you can pretty much guarantee, if you're very careful about the one you pick out and check out for discoloration on the torso, which this one might even have a little bit. It's not much. Check out the hands. The hands get a lot of chips to it, and then the feet. And just look really carefully before you buy one loose complete, and I bet you can find one for $400 to $450 if you're consistently searching eBay and Facebook. Next up was a CAS 80 Plus removable hood Lily Letty Jawa, a very desirable variant. It was listed for $37.50. The best offer accepted on that was $2,500. So he came down quite a bit on the price, and even at $2,500, I would say that's probably a little high. I think in an auction, a CAS 80 Plus removable hood Lily Letty Jawa probably sells sub $2,000. That's my guess. The last one I remember selling was around $1,700 or so for an 80 grade. It might have been even less than that. I'm just going on memory, but $2,500. It's not a terrible overpay, but I do think it's a little high. Next up, some oddities. We had a Palatoy mail order exclusive survival kit graded AFA 85. It was just the baggie. It did not include the box. The Palatoy version for the survival kit mail away included the box as well as the baggie. I don't think there was any catalog included. It was just a blank box. But that one, just the baggie by itself, was graded AFA 85 and sold for $177.50. And then here was a cool one. This was a Luke Skywalker Farm Boy Power of the Force coin mail away. The coin was graded AFA 85 and it was encased with the original mail away envelope. So very, very cool item there. $315 took that home on 28 bids. And then finally, this is not vintage. Admittedly not vintage, but it was a cool item. This was a retro collection first shot prototype for Obi-Wan Kenobi. So very, very cool item. Not something you see every day. It was graded AFA 85 plus with an archival case, completely unpainted. And it included a certificate of authenticity from Tom Derby. It was graded November 2023 retro collection unpainted first shot action figure. So that one sold in an auction for $237.50, which was a great deal, I thought, for a, it's a modern item, right? But it's very tough to find something like that. And I thought that was a pretty good deal. Anyway, I hope you enjoyed this look at recent loose graded from AFA, UKG, and CAS. Thank you as always for watching, and I'll be back soon.